You're listening to The Luxury Item, the podcast on the business of luxury and the people and companies that are shaping the future of the luxury industry. Here's your host, Scott Kerr.
Norma Kamali is one of America's most original and unique award-winning fashion designers, known for her innovative and influential garments which have set the standard for all the biggest names in high fashion. Ms. Kamali, who is best known for the archetypal sleeping bag coat and the high-heeled sneaker, has been moving the needle of design since first opening her doors on the cusp of the 1970s. Kamali has won numerous awards and patents for her designs, including a Coty Award, which is the fashion equivalent to winning an Oscar, a plaque on the Fashion Walk of Fame, a CFDA Board of Directors Special Tribute Award, and their Jeffrey Bean Lifetime Achievement Award. She's also a Presidential Award recipient for her work and leadership in the industry, as well as receiving the National Arts Club Medal of Honor. Her work is part of the Smithsonian and the Museum of Modern Art's collections and has been in numerous other museum displays. Kamali was one of the first in the fashion world to truly embrace wellness long before it was trendy, sell her designs on the internet way before the e-commerce boom, and essentially invented athleisure. Kamali continues to design collections, and her clothes are a mainstay on red carpets. Kamali's enterprise has expanded to include a lifestyle division, Norma Life, that encompasses home goods, skincare, and olive oil. She is also currently finding a way to carry her design legacy through artificial intelligence. At 78 years old, Norma Kamali has done it all, and she's not finished yet. Welcome to The Luxury Item, Norma.
Hi, Scott. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining me. I'm so honored to have you on the show. You know, it looks like you're really loving life right now. Last year, you enrolled in a course at MIT to learn about generative AI, and now you're putting AI to work to learn to represent your design style. You're a creator and host of a very cool podcast called The Invisible Threads, and you're still designing new collections, and I'm probably just scratching the surface. And I've read where you said, I've been in exactly the same job for all these years. The secret is to keep adding new things and create different experiences. Have you always worked in that state of curiosity?
I think so. I think the learning new things and the excitement of finding something that is completely new, and you have to really dig into it to learn it. But of course, it takes a curious person, which is why I do a podcast and you do a podcast. Yep. Because we're curious. And so the podcast sort of helps define why I am looking at things I've never done before. I want to know what makes people think about things or why people do things. So you understand completely what I'm talking about, because it's that curiosity that is inspiring and really is part of the creative process.
And you began sowing the seeds of your own fashion empire when you were in your 20s, but you didn't take the standard path into fashion by first going to school for fashion design and then apprenticing at a fashion house. You attended an arts high school and then the FIT, where you studied fashion illustration. And from what I understand, you were really never interested in the fashion industry.
Yeah, actually, that's true. I was really fascinated by Michelangelo when I was younger. I was just in awe of the study of the human form, and that's why I liked art, and that's why I learned to draw. My mother made my clothes, and so she let me think of the ideas of the clothes I wanted, but that didn't, in my mind, define where I wanted to go or what I wanted to do. It was just another creative thing that I did with my mother. My mother was extremely creative in many, many areas. But I also loved film, and I enjoyed old movies and movies that my mother saw as a kid. And so there was something about this, Sargent kind of look at fashion you have a painter who takes the fashion of the time and creates these beautiful images with paint. I loved that interpretation of fashion. And so I was thinking of it more illustratively than I was to actually be in the fashion business.
So when you looked at the movies, did that inspire you at all? Costumes that they wore in the movies?
Yeah, I thought of I loved the hair, the makeup, the dresses, the attitude, the genre. I spent, and then I decided to become an illustrator, a fashion illustrator, and because I got a scholarship to FIT, and I thought maybe that's how I'll apply this. So I spent many hours in the Metropolitan Museum library. And they had, it was a small room actually of magazines, and you couldn't bring anything in there. And we didn't really have cameras. I mean, it wasn't sort of the thing to have your own camera. And they didn't allow cameras or anything. So I would go in and literally memorize the pages. I would spend hours looking at each page and looking at the shoes that Schiaparelli had a dress, what were the shoes and the hat and the gloves and the proportion. So all of that was just memorized. And then sort of the elegance and the attitude and the gestures became sort of my inspiration for the way I drew women and drew fashion. I ended up taking anatomy classes as well. And I, really enjoyed the challenge of drawing a beautiful hand gesture, or even just the slight turn of a face, or the way fabric draped over a shoulder. So that was really the way I was looking at fashion. And then I soon found out when I graduated from FIT that there were really no jobs, fashion illustrators. There were a few, but and Antonio Lopez, I became friends with Antonio Lopez because my illustration instructor at FIT taught Antonio, and she brought him into our classroom and she said, I'm bringing Antonio in to meet you. I think you should know each other. And we became friends. And of course, if Antonio is doing the fashion illustrations in the New York Times, I need a different career, is what I thought. So, the universe takes you where you're supposed to go. And I am thrilled that I had that education and background because, especially with swimwear, knowing the human body, the way it moves, the strength of the body, all of that is really what I use every day, and I love as part of my early training.
And you opened up your first shop in 1967 in Midtown Manhattan on the East Side, but selling clothes you purchased in London, these groovy British imported fashion that was hot over there, but it really didn't hit the US market yet. But it wasn't until a couple of years later that you started designing your own pieces. Did you feel there was something lacking in women's wear back then, or did you design something that you would like to wear yourself?
So what happened, Scott, was when I graduated FIT and I saw that I needed to do something else, but I didn't know what it was going to be. And I thought I need to travel. And that was when the airlines were in their really most exciting time. Yeah. And I got a job in the office selling tours and working on a UNIVAC computer. And I was able to travel round trip to London every weekend for 4 years that I worked at the airlines for $29 round trip.
Wow.
And I landed in London just at the beginning of what was happening there. And I was there every weekend to watch it expand and explode, really. And so bringing the clothes back to the shop, like you said, and first bringing them for friends, and then realizing there were so many people that wanted them that I brought more and more. But then it came to the point where I had already defined my own personal style, which was an evolution of what I'd been wearing from London, but into a new place. I am now, I was mixing vintage, obviously from the 20s and 30s and 40s, my favorite periods, and some of the feelings from London. And what was going on in London was heavily 20s inspired. And then I started to have ideas, and I made hot pants, which were these tiny little shorts, because after you have a mini, if you get shorter than a mini, you need to wear something, shorts or something underneath the skirt, because it's just going to be impossible to be proper. And so I just thought, why not just do short shorts? And so I did them, and that really kind of helped put me on the map for something that people would wait on lines to get from me from the shop. And they were basically, as most young designers who have a shop will tell you, a lot of what they make are one of a kinds. They're not beautifully sewn. They're sort of arts and crafts versions of fashion. And I did appliques and patchwork and all kinds of things. I did scenes, palm trees, and all kinds of things on the shorts. And I did rhinestone T-shirts with names of people on them. So it was very kitschy and fun, but it also was very leggy and very much a part of the proportion and silhouette of the time. But it was a way to take that mini skirt even shorter and do it in shorts. So the mini skirt hadn't been seen before on the streets of any city until London just blew it out of the water with that. And then short shorts like that on the street as clothing had never been seen before either. And even athletic shorts would usually be worn in a gym or in a sports arena or location. So the idea of shorts as clothing was very, very revolutionary. It doesn't sound like a big deal now, but it really was. So that was sort of the beginning of my ideas, kind of flowing from what was going on and what I felt could be next.
Did you have any training in sewing or making a pattern, or was it more like learning on the job?
Well, it was learning on the job, but don't forget, I had started, my teacher was my mother.
Right.
From the minute I could voice an opinion about what I wanted to wear, which you might have guessed was pretty early. I saw and learned and watched what she did. I saw the way she made patterns. I saw the way she sewed. I saw her creative. She had no barriers on what you could do. She never was in a box about anything. She was just extraordinary. And so I had an early education, not just about how to do my craft, but also about the freedom of the spirit to be open to anything and not to have that there is never the word of this is not possible. To my mother, everything was possible.
And you had the likes of Bette Midler, the New York Dolls, Yoko Ono, Raquel Welch, Bianca Jagger, and other style icons, and editors of top fashion magazines coming to your store. Is that when the Kamali brand buzz started to build? I know you were talking about the short shorts and that sort of caught fire, but did the buzz start building even more when you had celebrities and editors coming in?
Yeah, and that actually was 6 months after we were in business. It
Mm.
was there was an editor for Bazaar, Harper's Bazaar, which in the 60s was extraordinary. It was just a magical fashion book. Um, and at the time, this editor would walk by the store, and we were in the basement, so you had to look down to see the window. And she came to visit, and before I knew it, I had two full pages within the first year of being in business in Bazaar and in Vogue. So, um, and I first of all, I was so embarrassed because I thought, how can I be in this magazine when I don't know what I'm doing?
Yeah,
I'm
right.
I'm guessing. I'm just doing this a day at a time, and I didn't have the awesome responsibility of doing a fashion show and being judged, and I was just having a good time and seeing how you can make money at making clothes to stay in business, to buy more fabric. And I found my love, and that was plenty for me. But having this now, first of all, it was such a great honor to even think that something I did could be in a magazine, but having that in that kind of pat on the back gave me so much strength. But at the same time, I thought they're going to find me out. They're going to
Mm.
find out that I don't know what I'm doing. And I think every young designer, new designer, or person that's new at what they're doing, if you're in your 20s and even in your 30s, you're still faking it till you make it. I think we all have gone through that, but having it, in front of a lot of people in fashion magazines that I worshipped and thought were like, this is really a beautiful book. This is a treasure, and there I'm in it. How is that possible?
And you ended up striking out on your own in the late 70s. I was reading in an interview, you said, I never thought of myself as a businesswoman. I thought that was a man's thing, but I realized that if I want to do a dress with 6 sleeves, then I better do something else with 2 sleeves so I can pay the rent. It helped me become a better designer. So now that you were independent, did you have a philosophy about the approach you were going to take for creating clothes?
Well, I mean, I think there are several things that were happening. And as a designer, I am very consciously aware of what is going on socially, economically, politically, because it affects what people want and how much happiness they need to get through clothes, or what what purpose the clothes need to serve at the time. Um, and so this was a time when women's liberation was really coming to a big awareness, something that had not been upfront for many, many, many years. And it was now progressed so far forward that the voices were very loud and very clear. I was part of that, not that I was out in the streets, but I was sort of living the possibility of what a woman could do as an entrepreneur, as a business person. And I didn't know other women that had their own businesses. I didn't know other women that ran the business part of it. It was taken for granted that men were educated for this, that men intuitively were better at it than women. And I had accepted that fact, just like everybody in my generation. But I couldn't accept it if I was going to go out on my own. And because when you get married at 19, it's very hard to expect that that marriage is going to last,
Yeah.
especially if you're working together. And so I was basically, I left, but I left with $98 and I had to figure out what I was going to do if I was going to continue what had now become my dream job of a lifetime. I could have a creative life, and I was loving that I found this. So I I figured out that I had to be a good communicator. I had to tell people about what was happening in my life. I had to share the information, ask for help, figure out a way to restart a business. A lot of people didn't know me because I was the one in the background making the clothes and I wasn't so much up front. So I had a lot of work to do. Um, and I was so determined to make it work. And my survival instincts, I guess, as a New York City girl,
Hmm.
came into play. And I wanted to have this life, and I was going to do everything I could to figure out how to do it. I borrowed money from everybody I knew on the planet, and I paid everybody back something each week. And when I couldn't, I would send a note of apology that I couldn't do it that week. And it wasn't a lot of money each week, but I paid everybody that ever loaned me any money. I still to this day, I'm religious about that kind of thing. And that was a great lesson for me. And I learned the importance of communicating with people who do things for you, that do favors, that lend you money, keeping them up to date on when something is bad, and when it's good, you make up for it and you keep them in the loop so they don't think you sort of took advantage
Right.
or don't have respect. So I that was sort of the early beginnings. And then I soon found out that I actually really see the importance of the business side of it. And it helps me be a better designer if I'm aware. And today, too, if you're aware during COVID, what does that mean? What will people wear? How will they live? What is the lifestyle? How do I apply that to what I'm going to make? What price range should it be? So being consciously aware of everything that's happening, because you can't just kind of like a robot keep doing what you're doing if it doesn't relate to what the time is
Yeah.
and how much money people have to spend.
I want to talk about the Studio 54 nightclub days. To say that the legendary Studio 54 was the place to be in New York City in the 1970s would be a massive understatement. The nightclub served as a catalyst that brought together the most famous celebrities, socialites, athletes, and artists from around the globe, but it also was a magnet for top creative leaders in fashion like Karl Lagerfeld, Halston, Diane von Furstenberg, and Calvin Klein. And I know you're friends with Ian Schrager, and you spent time at Studio 54. What were some of your memories from that time?
Well, Scott, I actually, Ian and I were a couple at the time, and
Hmm.
it was a sort of a private, quiet kind of relationship. And truth be told, I never went to Studio 54. But my clothes made many appearances. I
Yeah.
dressed a lot of people. I did the sleeping bag coats for the guys at the door, for Steve. I was very aware of everything that was happening there. I did Grace Jones's New Year's Eve costume. And I have pictures of Bianca, Diane, and lots of people in my clothes. And so I was busy making clothes for people who were going there, and that was my job. That's what I chose to do. Doesn't mean I don't love to dance, because can, I can invade any dance party at any time. But at that time, I really saw my role in a different way, and I saw it as an opportunity for me to find my way through. Like I said, we had COVID, which was a negative experience, but in New York, Studio 54 revitalized so many businesses during a time in New York City when the city was crumbling. People were fleeing out of the city. And there was another influx happening at the same time where people who didn't have a lot of money but had creativity could come and live in these empty apartments that people were fleeing from. The city was tough,
Right.
was difficult, but what happened was the enormous amount of creative talent that came into New York at that time, I believe created the peak of the fashion industry at that time, and I believe it was New York. And I will also add, part of that also was not only were women who felt trapped in their world who came to New York and were feminists, but there were so many people who had to hide under an identity that wasn't their real feeling about who they were able to express themselves in New York. And all of that brought incredible talent. And I will tell you, the city was a hotbed of beauty, excitement, and influence that, in my memory, is hard to top.
And you've been running your own business for 56 years and continue to move the needle on design. The American fashion world was a very different marketplace and was a very different world at the time. So what would you say is the biggest difference between, the fashion industry today versus when you first started?
I think it's much harder now. I think the social media moves everything at a speed that is almost unrealistic to kind of let somebody evolve. Like when I made mistakes and fell on my face, there weren't that many people looking, right, at the beginning. And so the consequence wasn't as big. Now there's so much pressure on designers to do a big show right away, to get out there, and then if they make a mistake, the criticism is huge because it's global. It's loud. It's a loud sound of somebody falling on their face, and it's very hard to get up when there are that many people who have just heard about your mistakes or heard about a failure. And you can't be successful without failures. You can't be successful without making mistakes and learning from them. So it is really difficult. And there are designers that I mentor now, and I think the ones that are the survivors aren't necessarily the most talented in certain ways, but I believe are the ones that have really good ideas and are smart, and they see opportunities where other people aren't. And those are the people who are going to make something happen and stay in the business or in a business related, because it takes ideas, and it takes creative ideas, not just for the clothing, but for what the idea of presenting the clothing or interpreting what should be happening with fashion. And there are many of those out there. And I wish them well, because they can be the survivors that interpret this fast moving fast changing industry we're in. So it's a tough time now, but I also think it's the most exciting time in my lifetime.
Yeah.
And to be here now doing something you love is a great thing. And hopefully they stay strong and they learn about business so that when they have these ideas, they can use the creative side of them, the business side of them, and really invent what the future is going to look like, because that's where we are right now.
At what point did you think that you found your lane and where where you carved out a piece of the marketplace that was yours and you just stuck with it?
Well, I think that it changes through the decades, right? I can't even say years. It changes through the decades because um, there are a couple of things that are happening. The world is changing. There are current events that are affecting the way people are shopping and what they want. And I'm changing, I'm growing, I'm evolving. My experiences are becoming more educated and more informed. I'm getting better at what I'm doing. But at each age, each of my personal ages, I have interests in different ways. So my work is clearly evident wherever you see it. People recognize this is Norma Kamali. No matter what year it is, they can say, this is Norma Kamali. So it's clear that I'm not copying anybody, that I'm authentic, the brand is authentic. But what's happening is how I'm applying what I do and how I'm reinventing what I do through the decades because of what's happening. And again, I use COVID because that's a perfect example of you have to switch fast. If you want to stay in business, you better think on your feet and think quickly and get it done. So every time I felt comfortable in a lane, I became aware of the fact that if you stay too comfortable in this lane, the traffic's going to go in another direction and you're
Yeah.
going to be lost. So you have to be aware of the fact that you can be riding high, but you can drop off the planet in a minute if you're not in tune with where the flow is going, what's going on, what's happening with the economy, how are people buying, what are they interested in. It's not just the color, it's not just the silhouette, it's more than that, right? It has so much more to do with everything that's happening on the planet.
And you seem to come up these innovative designs from the most unexpected fabrications. The famous sleeping bag coat, an oversized pillowy nylon coat that you came up with by cutting up a sleeping bag on a camping trip, or the parachute dress, which is an adjustable drawstring dress made of actual recycled parachutes, or the high-heeled sneakers. So in the design process, how do you approach creating something that won't just be a novelty, but something new that changes the way someone sees?
I don't think about that first, obviously. For example, when I was doing the sweats collection, prior to that, it was Studio 54 time. So everybody was sparkling and bright colors and, big hair. And it was just a party atmosphere day and night, right? Color everywhere. And at during that period, and I made tons of clothes during that period, lots of clothes for people to dance in and all of that. But I was doing a swimwear collection, and I love swimming, and I swam all the time. I even would go into the city pools at night and swim at night. I was like crazed about swimming. And I was doing my swimwear collection, and I was thinking about cover-ups, and I used to wear my brother's gray sweatshirt from the Army Navy store when I got out of the water because it would be cold at night, especially, and the sweatshirt would keep me warm. And so I bought gray sweatshirt material, and I made a few cover-ups, and then I thought, wow, this really looks good. And I made a dress, I made a gown, I made a suit, I made a jumpsuit, I made dresses. And before I knew it, I had 36 pieces of gray sweatshirt styles. I thought to myself, this is completely different from anything that's happening right now. And I think it's something. And so I asked Women's Wear to help me make a decision about what to do with it. And they said, you need to collaborate with a manufacturer. And so I did a license agreement, and that collection sold globally. And it was the first collection of casual sportswear for women, so that you could wear sweatshirt clothes. And I showed them with sneakers and high-heeled sneakers and all of that. And it was radically different from what was before that, which I explained was very colorful and very Studio 54-y. So the segue from one thing radically to another, and then the effect that it had on people, I think came from number one, we knew Studio 54 wasn't going to last forever, right? Nothing does.
Right.
And what would the next thing be? Well, there was a feeling about, starting to work out a little bit more casual. And I developed it from a practical point of view to, cover up swimsuits so you're not soaking wet. And from that, you see people wearing sweats and casual clothes everywhere now. People used to get dressed to get on a plane. They would never wear sweats to get
Right.
on a plane. So that idea sort of helped me think about the longevity of an idea, when to stop doing something and start doing something else. It's all about timing. It's all about the longevity of not only the garment that you can save and wear for many, many years, but also the longevity of a concept.
You were talking about social media before, and back then you essentially relied exclusively on photographs and select fashion and lifestyle magazines to market your products. And now with social media, the internet, Web3, and more magazines than ever before, you have this wealth of opportunities available to you for fashion and really every industry. The digital revolution has brought huge change. You were one of the first fashion houses to sell clothing online back in 1996. Why did you embrace the digital age and e-commerce so quickly when the rest of the fashion industry were laggards?
Well, I totally attribute it to my job at the airlines. And, it was shocking that they even hired me, because I had zero office skills and I still don't really know how to type. But I think working at a UNIVAC computer, I really learned what that meant, that there was this ability to capture information at real time in different locations and to send messages in real time. That was a big deal. That was like, I would sit back and think, this is really something. And I can't believe that I'm sitting in front of this computer, witnessing it and being a part of it. And so I fell in love with that immediately. I was excited about what that was. I didn't know how to interpret it in my life, but I knew what it was doing at the airline. I understood the function of it and the importance of it, and that there was a lot of growth in planning about this in the airline industry. So I think if I had that experience in the 60s, when I heard that I could communicate directly, not through buyers, not through stores, but directly to my customer and tell her from me, not their version of me, tell her from me what I was thinking and learn about her. I wanted to be in the front of that line. I wanted to be there. And I realized that there weren't very many people who were on looking at websites or anything. I didn't care. I just like, get me in this thing because I'm ready. I want to do it. Um and so I wasn't afraid of it. I wasn't sort of thinking that I had to have some sort of genius to know how to do it, because I understood the simplicity of the technology also. That fortunately my experience at the airlines gave me. I would have been afraid, I guess, if I didn't realize there's a simplicity to this communication. And obviously it is simple because everybody in the world is doing it now.
I'm excited to talk to you about artificial intelligence. It's become a powerful ally for fashion designers, brands, and enthusiasts alike. It's already being used to design clothing, predict trends, streamline supply chains, battle counterfeiting, and improve the shopping experience. And you dived into AI head on when you enrolled in an MIT course on artificial intelligence. And I was recently reading that you've been working with the AI focused agency Maison Meta to build a custom tool that can generate new designs based on your creative DNA from text prompts. They've been feeding thousands of images from your brand's archives into the model, teaching it the essence of the Norma Kamali style. When did artificial intelligence first catch your attention as a possible game changer for the fashion industry?
I had an experience where a company approached me, not in this country, outside of the country, about downloading my brain. And I thought for a minute and I said, no, I don't think so. I had no idea what I just, even when they were explaining it to me, I was like, no, I don't think so. But I thought about it when I got home, and I thought about how brilliant that idea was, that if you could put all of this information, and maybe simply just the archive information, into one place, and then literally automate. What they were talking about is that they would then have a website that would automate collections for monthly deliveries for the website, using not only ideas, but also the thought process that I use behind doing collection. And they were specifically referring to the collection I did for Walmart.
Mhm.
And so I kind of had a formula for that. So they wanted me to think out that formula for them, and then they could use AI to build on that, which was brilliant. Brilliant idea, right?
Yeah.
And so I thought, well, I think I should do that for myself. And so I got some archivists to start taking all of the information from my archives and putting it into a system, and organizing it by category and classification. And then I met with Maison Meta, and I asked them if they could help me with that, and they said absolutely. So they, like you said, the model then created using my archive, is what I use. In fact, today I'm working on the swimwear category, because I'm going to do a swim collection designed by Norma Kamali using AI and inspired by her archive collection. So the new collection will have the tool of AI assisting me with the design of a new swimwear collection inspired by the swimwear collections I've done in the past, but very much a future collection of swimwear. And the thing about it is, I also see it as a tool for my company for the future. And the more I put my energy into it using prompts that indicate a certain approach towards, let's say, swimwear or whatever it is I'm using or playing with when I'm using this tool, I'm also training it. So Maison Meta trained it for swimwear, right? Trained it to be a tool for me to use. And now I'm training it to think in a certain way. And these are loose terms, obviously.
Yeah.
To think in a certain way so that I may say to my sales department, if they have requests from our accounts who always want exclusives, and they usually have bestsellers or something like that, they can put into the computer the bestsellers and have the computer generate versions of the bestsellers for the account. So they'll be inspired by Norma Kamali and using the tool, and the prompt will be suggestions that the buyer makes and that the sales staff make. And then, of course, there has to be a final okay on that so that it's true to the brand. But I think there's the possibility then for different departments in the company to be able to use this tool for the company in many ways. And it can be a legacy for the company going forward.
When I first read about it, I thought the idea was brilliant. Are you concerned that the loss of human touch and craftsmanship, which is the very essence that has long distinguished fashion, will dilute the artistry and soul behind your brand?
Well, first of all, the soul is the magic word, right? Because AI doesn't have a soul.
Right.
It's human beings have a soul. Human beings have life experiences. Human beings touch each other. They touch fabric. They feel things. That's critical to the process, right? AI brings a lot of fun, interesting tools to you, but it can't bring a soul. It can't bring feeling. It can't bring that touch experience. So I don't feel threatened by the idea that you lose that. Plus, even if robots are making the clothes, like even if a robot makes the swimsuit that I designed using a prompt with my archive and AI, there's still the process of that pattern having to fit a human form that has, if they're swimming, that is going to dive in a pool, that's going to run, that's going to jump, that's going to bend. There has to be an integration of human and soul before that swimsuit becomes an actual garment. There has to be the integration of a pattern that fits the form, a fabric choice that feels good on the body, that performs, that will last in chlorine water, that will stretch to make you feel comfortable. So there's a lot that goes into a swimsuit or a style or designs. And so if a human being is making it, there's a soul and there's a heartbeat. If AI were just doing all of it on its own, it doesn't have a soul and it doesn't have a heartbeat. There are a lot of AI generated designs, fashion designs that you can see, and a lot of them don't look, they're beautiful, but they don't look like they have a soul or a heartbeat. And part of it is because it's, first of all, it's pieces of things from lots of different people's collections, right? And you can identify in them, oh, that's this designer, that's that designer. It's like little bits of things you've seen before all put together, which is gorgeous, by the way. But there's something missing. First of all, it's not a garment yet. The translation of that to a garment is another part of the process. There are a lot of steps. And as long as people understand that humans are the ones with the heartbeat and the soul and the feelings and the emotions, and that is not what we should expect from AI. AI will give us lots of other things. It can help make our lives easier. It can give us tools to help our businesses to have more creative experiences, but it's not going to breathe life into and soul into anything without a human at the front of it.
Now, I know you love new technology, and the new Apple Vision Pro spatial computing headset was released a month or so ago, and there are already apps that leverage its capabilities for fashion design and immersive shopping experiences. Have you been exploring virtual and augmented reality technology for your brand?
Yeah, actually, I was probably fifth online for the headset, and I ended up returning it because I don't think it's ready yet. I don't think it is easy to use. I don't think
It's not intuitive.
it's not at the point yet. But again, that's a tool. Years ago, I experimented with VR and AR in some projects that were a lot of fun. It was early, and but I still believe there's lots of opportunity for just ease and comfort and accessibility for the customer, and also for the designer in many ways. But and I loved the demonstration at the Apple store. I loved the whole thing. But then when I brought it home, when it got to taking it home, I thought, you know what? I'm not going to be able to use it because it's not there yet for me actually using it as a part of what I do. So, but they're so good. I mean, first of all, it's brilliantly packaged and presented. Everybody that did the demonstration did a great job. The product is brilliant, but I feel like it needs, which as we all know with Apple, they're ahead of the game. They're out there on the front, but I think I'm waiting for the third version of this, I think. And then more people can participate with you too. And it'll be at a better price. And I think there's a lot that can be done using that tool. But it's beautiful. It's like going to the Sphere in Las Vegas. You see the way theater should be.
Right.
You see the way seeing a movie should be. we're looking at the future with all of these. We're looking at what it should be. And I look at these tools as the future of education. If you're going to learn about history and the Civil War, why not see it in action? Why not see and be a part of it? Why not feel the 3D aspect of everything? So, but we're so close, and it's almost here, and they need to be applauded for really getting out there and making it happen. And I'm sure they expect that it'll take time to get the price down. It'll take time to perfect it, but to get it out there was an important thing.
You've also been a wellness influencer who sought out alternative wellness methods decades before there was a hashtag on Instagram. You said it was the 1980s AIDS epidemic that informed your attitude towards health. When was that tipping point for you, and when did you start putting health and wellness into the heart of your brand?
I know that when my very close friends were dying, and I didn't know how to mourn. It's something that's inconceivable. If you think, you're in your 30s, 20s, and 30s, and one day someone that you were just on a picnic with or did something with is now says, I have AIDS, I'm dying. Basically, if you had AIDS, you were saying you were going to die. And then they actually die, and in a short period of time, and it's happening one after another. And then you're very close. My two closest friends, one had his birthday a day before mine, and the other had his birthday the day after mine. We were inseparable, and they both died. I didn't know how to grieve or mourn what had happened. I was young. Young people weren't supposed to die. What was happening? And I read and learned as much as I could about it. And what I realized was that a compromise, what AIDS did was it compromised the immune system, and how devastating that is. So I did research, and Andrew Weil was really one of the early pioneers in this world of medicine before you get sick, or health before you get sick, lifestyle before preventing you to get sick. And so he would hold these seminars and weekend lecture series in Arizona, and I started to go to them, and they were geared mostly for doctors to incorporate into their practices. So a lot of it was a little over my head, but I was a good student. I was determined to really learn and understand, and then I decided to make it my lifestyle. And I couldn't really talk to anybody about it because it just was too early for that kind of conversation. You were just a cuckoo bird if you talked about any of that stuff. But it's very much a part of my life, and it sort of evolved into what people call longevity now. And living a long, healthy life is obviously the only alternative choice. And so there are lots of things that are developing for longevity now that I'm very interested in. And AI is also a big influence in medicine as well. And things like stem cell are speeding along. And if you do follow my podcast, there are some really great interviews with doctors who are doing a lot of really fantastic things. One of my favorites is Donna Chang. She is just amazing. She's working with stem cell at Texas University. And so I think healthy lifestyle and living a lifestyle that more and more people now are aware of. Everybody's working out. Everybody realizes what food they shouldn't eat and what they should eat. Smokers are fewer and fewer. People care about being healthy. Some try and give up, but they try again. I think there's a feeling that life is worth living, especially if you're healthy. And so I find it fascinating. I'm as interested in this as I am in AI because I feel like they're both critically important for the future of humanity.
And the pandemic really accelerated our focus on health and wellness. It's a top priority for consumers, and we've seen luxury fashion and beauty brands increasingly emphasize wellness in their product offerings. Consciously, people are paying attention to longevity, anti aging, better sleep, and mental health, that you talked about before. But almost a year before the pandemic hit, you branched out into the beauty game with the introduction of a skin line, the first offering from your Normal Life concept that focuses on healthy lifestyle. Can you talk about the inspiration for that venture?
Well, I actually, the first time I did a skin line or a beauty collection or a fragrance collection was in the early 90s.
Hmm.
And again, it was continuing my search for healthy lifestyle. And I went on a search to find the best olive oils in the world. So I found them and I started selling them in my store. And I opened a wellness cafe at that time.
Hmm.
And then I developed fragrances in France, in the south of France, that I'd already developed a fragrance in the early 80s. So I was familiar with the process. And I developed fragrances with an incredible perfumer from Robertet. And he and I looked at scents that would make people feel good, like the scent of a baby, the scent of the beach, a scent to meditate in, and scents that all kind of related to good feeling. And I also had creams that were developed at the olive orchards using all natural products and that weren't just moisturizers, but they had liniment type usages for sunburn or diaper rash, things like that. And so that was the beginning. The Wellness Cafe was the beginning of this venture. And then Norma Life was taken more modified for an e-commerce understanding. You know, the cafe was an in-store experience, but the Norma Life brand really was a way to bring it online. And then I did my book, I Am Invincible, where I expanded on the idea of healthy lifestyle, and it's sort of a handbook, mostly a handbook for women on the aging with power process and also healthy lifestyle.
And then a couple of years later, you launched the home collection.
Yes, and I did home several times throughout my career. I did home in the 80s, which was the opposite of minimal. and, and and it was pretty fantastic.
Wasn't quiet luxury.
It was 80s, and it was a lot of beautiful craftsmanship that I was able to get, and a lot of extraordinary fabrics and bedspreads with seed pearls all over them, and beautiful patterns of Japanese seed pearls and things like that. But the home collection is really part of a mindset that I developed when I turned 50. I decided to get rid of my possessions and make sure that I have a clean slate so that I always have a clean slate for creative new ideas. And I had so much incredible beauty around me that there wasn't room for anything else, anything new. And so I literally, and I never thought I would ever let go of any of these things that I had collected. I had warehouses full of things, including my collections of clothing. And I had an auction at Christie's. I donated a lot of things to different causes and to different people, to the city of New York, to St. Patrick's, to whatever. And then I decided I wanted to have a minimal life of possessions so that I was free to have plenty of space for new ideas. And so today I still live that way. And part of that is the furniture. The furniture is all soft furniture. It's all different shapes that I create out of fabric. And my apartment is a gorgeous apartment. And it's these soft, comfortable pieces that can move around in a room, and depending on how many people are in the room and where they want to sit, and it just takes on a character of its own. And I'm always fascinated when people leave to see what the arrangement of the furniture turns out to be after they leave. And it's really, it tells you about the energy of the group of people that were there. And when there are tight clusters of furniture together, it's really nice because it shows people who wanted to be close together, wanted to talk. But when you have heavy furniture that's in a position, you can sit at the edge of the sofa or sit on the arm of the sofa, but you can't really kind of lay back and just, relax into something and move it over next to somebody else to have a more intimate conversation.
So it's very fluid, like a fluid.
It's very fluid. And my dog loves it too. And the beauty of it all is it's all washable.
So we're just coming off New York Fashion Week, where you previewed your fall 2024 ready-to-wear collection. Can you talk about the inspiration behind that latest collection?
I wish I could, but I'm doing my resort collection, and it's surrounding me right now, and all I can think
You're
about,
immersed.
I'm so immersed in it.
So you want to talk about the resort? Let's talk about the resort collection. Can you talk about that?
When you asked me that question, I went, "Oh my God!"
That was so.
I can't remember that.
That was so. That was so last month.
I know, it's so crazy. I think, and it's very funny because I'm in a big room that has the collection is building and final samples are in this room. But then on the opposite wall, I have all of the swatches and colors for spring. So I'm actually facing a wall that has what spring is going to look like, not yet in the form of garments, but in tone and color. And so, as you can see, designers are always thinking about more than one collection at a time, and we're always thinking forward. So when you asked me about fall, it was like, oh my God.
So what is the theme? What is the theme? Like, can you share overall for the spring?
Yeah. So for resort, which is what I'm in the middle of, I never really have a theme. Like, I don't travel to places and have, I was just in Cambodia and I don't really do that. Cause like I said, a lot of what I do is based on what's going on in the world. What's the political atmosphere like? What's the economic atmosphere like? What's happening with women? What are women thinking about? What's happening on social media? Who are the influencers on social media? Not the 9 zillion influencers, but there are certain people that have an impact on the culture. Is there anybody like that now? What are they what is their thing? And so I really am concentrating on what's happening in the world. And then as a woman, what am I feeling? And what does my customer like? What has she been buying of ours? And what's been selling really well? So I have sort of this intuitive data, and I also have data. I'm a big believer in data and facts and understanding. And I think about the price of the garment. I think about the easy care of the garment, and I think about how long this purchase will last in somebody's wardrobe. How long will it be relevant, and how long will it be in good condition and feel good? But I would say, because resort is really the time of the year when we're talking about the holidays, we're talking about people going on vacation, we're talking about people celebrating. There are more fabrics that have to do with that time of the year. And there's a special feeling about the fabrics and the colors and the prints. And there's a special occasion feeling about it, but not because the economy is definitely a challenge for a lot of people, and the cost of food and the cost of living right now is challenging. I tried very hard to make sure people could have a really good time in what they bought from me and love it, but not break the bank, not do anything that would make them feel guilty or awful about it.
Right.
I, of course, will have things that are more expensive because people have different budgets that they can go to for shopping. But I don't want to make people feel guilty. I do want them to have a good time. And so these are clothes also that can be a party and a good time and a celebration, dressing up either with family and friends or special occasions, going to special places, swimwear, coats. So this time of the year gives me a chance to play in that world and then do some fun, dramatic pieces that I think people expect from me too. So many of my customers who I've never seen before, because social media is now allowing me the great opportunity of seeing incredible photographs taken by people who buy my clothes and wearing them and setting up beautiful photographs. We have a tagline of hashtag NK My Way. And we feature these photographs because I have the most beautiful, beautiful women wearing my clothes. They're from all over the world. They're all so extraordinary, and they style themselves beautifully, and they take whoever is taking pictures of them is doing a really good job. And so I'm not just seeing celebrities in my clothes or my clothes in magazines, I'm seeing them on the women that wear them. And so I can imagine them when I'm doing the collection, and thinking, I wonder, am I hitting it right for these women? Are they going to like this in the same way they liked what they've already purchased? And so that makes it a lot of fun for me.
Which kind of leads me to my next question. You've built such a strong brand identity for yourself. What do you think has been the key to building this identity?
Just being true to yourself, I guess. You have to believe in what you envision, and then do it. And again, use determination to get it done. This business is not easy. It's hard. There is nothing easy about it. And it's part survival and the excitement and joy of seeing a creative happening every day when you see a garment come to life that you imagined. But it's a tough business. It's a lot of hard work. I think the fact that people can recognize what I do, and if they I assume if they're feeling good in what they're wearing, if it feels good on and it's fun to wear, and they enjoy that experience, then I'm doing my job.
What are you conquering next, Norma?
Well, I don't really conquer anything. I don't, that's, I really think very deliberately about what I'm doing, because I am running a business and I am being creative. And I think there are so many areas of the world to explore for more partnerships, collaborations. I think that there's going to be a lot of big changes in the world. So I want to understand what that means. I want to understand what commerce will be like in the near future and the future. What our relationships as a country with other countries will be like. I need to know all of these things before I decide to embark on anything. I also think looking at securing independence and keeping that independence strong is very important. When there are a lot of changes in the industry, it's an important time to really be very alert and informed.
So, Norma, my final question is the luxury item question, which I ask all my guests. So, if you were stranded on a deserted island and you could only have one single luxury item with you, what would that luxury item be? It can't be any form of air or water transportation to get you off that island, or anything that requires mobile service so you can call somebody to get you off that island. It's just lonely you on this island with lots of sand, palm trees, ocean, lots of ocean. What would that one single luxury item you would like to have with you?
I think it would have to be a tool of some kind, so I could grow things or pick things or cut things to eat, and to make shelter for myself. I think the luxury would be to stay alive. I think that would be the goal, and whatever tools I could have to help me protect myself from the environment and to keep food and water going. That to me is the best luxury.
Norma Kamali, thank you so much for joining me on the luxury item. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you very much.
That's it for this episode of the Luxury Item Podcast. Thank you so much for listening. If you found this useful and entertaining, I would be really grateful if you can share it with a friend or colleague. I would love it if you subscribe so you never miss an episode. And while you're there, be sure to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. It really helps other listeners find us. The Luxury Item Podcast is a production of Silvertone Consulting. I'm your host, Scott Kerr. Until next time.